in the quiet, sun-drenched heart of Texas. A simple cattle ranch became the unlikely stage for a mystery that would challenge our very understanding of the world. This is not just a story about a miraculous event, but a tale of the hidden bonds that connect all living things. It begins with a parent's worry and a child's innocent love for his favorite calf. But it unfolds into a discovery so profound that it echoes from the dusty pastures all the way to the silent, watching stars. Prepare to step into a world where the gentle lowing of a cow contains an ancient secret, and a little boy holds the key to unlocking it. Let us know where you are watching from, and what time you found this video. In the very center of the Texas Hill Country, Jack Thompson and his wife, Sarah, had a little cattle ranch that was drenched in excessive amounts of sunlight. In order to leave a legacy for their son Tommy, who was just 4 years old at the time, they were living a life filled with calloused hands and peaceful sunsets. Because of a damaged water pump and a diminishing supply of feed, they were forced to make a supply run into town on a particularly hot afternoon. They had no other option given the circumstances. "Is it all right, friend, if you stay near to the house?" While ruffling his son's hair and waving toward the placid brown and white calf that was grazing nearby, Jack murmured, "Bessie will keep you company." Because she was Tommy's shadow, his confidant, and the patient recipient of endless one-sided chats and sticky-handed pats, Bessie was not just any cow. She was Tommy's trusted companion. "All right, Daddy," Tommy responded with a smile that was so wide that it showed his teeth, his attention already focused on his cow companion. While the dust cloud from their old pickup vehicle was settling back into the ranch road, Tommy grabbed his favorite toy, which was a bright red fire truck, and trundled into the meadow. The only sounds that could be heard were the buzzing of cicadas, the pleasant scent of dry grass, and the gentle presence of the herd who chewed on their grass. The peace, however, is a delicate thing. Several hours later, Jack and Sarah were making their way home down the last, twisting dirt route when they were startled by a sound that was unlike anything they had ever heard before. It wasn't just a moo. It was a chorus of themidist, frightened symphony of deep bellows and frenzied screams that caused the hair on their arms to stand on end. The whiteness of Sarah's knuckles could be seen on the dashboard. Jack ... It is really problematic. This is the terror. Not that he needed any explanation. As they reached the top of the last hill, the truck lurched forward, spraying gravel out of its mouth. Their lungs were deprived of oxygen as a result of the sight that took place below. Stumping and circling a single location in the middle of the main pasture, the whole herd was in a frenetic, whirling tornado of energy. They were all moving in the same direction. They were lowering their heads, not in a hostile manner, but rather in a manner that seemed to be respect. As Jack put the vehicle into park and ran into the mayhem, Sarah followed closely after him, her heart pounding against her ribs until it finally stopped. It was not out of fear that the cows separated for them. Rather, it was as if they were offering them an audience. It was steady, in the middle of the bovine circle, that they saw the image that would soon shatter their perception of the universe and reverberate across the whole planet. Bessie, Tommy's calf, was resting on her side and breathing in a difficult and shallow manner due to the circumstances. And there was Tommy, sound sleeping, nestled up against her warm flank of the bed. That, however, was not the surprise. Bessie's side had a patch of naked flesh, and Tommy's fingers were connected to it by delicate, luminous tendrils of a gentle blue light. These tendrils emanated from Tommy's little hand, which was extended beyond its reach. As soon as the light made contact with the calf, the animal's frantic breathing began to subside, and a deep, jagged cut on her leg, which had not been there for many hours, began to visibly and impossibly knit itself back together. In a manner reminiscent to time-lapse photography, new skin was gradually covering the wound, and the inflammation was reducing right in front of their own eyes. During a moment that was alive, breathing, and impossible, they were frozen statues that were unable to speak. It was ultimately Sarah who spoke the words, "Jack ... What has he done?" in a voice that was shaking with a mixture of fear and astonishment. However, the reality of the situation, the occurrence that would shock the entire world, arrived only a few seconds later. Tommy sprang up in his sleep, mumbled something that was incomprehensible, and the blue light flashed suddenly and brilliantly for a brief while. It was as if he was aware of their presence. Within that split second, each and every one of the cows that were in the vicinity, which totaled 30 in total, turned their heads in a manner that was perfectly coordinated and synchronized toward Jack and Sarah, and for a single, heart-stopping second, reflected in 60D brown cow eyes, was not animal instinct, but rather a keen, intelligent, and knowing glimmer of conscious comprehension. This was a moment that stopped the heart beating. It was not just one cow that the youngster was treating. He was able to establish a connection with each and every one of them. The subsequent stillness was more oppressive than any sound that Jack had ever experienced before. It was the silence that caused the whole globe to hold its breath. Both Peter and Sarah remained there, unable to move as the bovine circle gradually split apart. The cows moved off, leaving the tiny family at the heart of the awkward situation. Their weird, coordinated intelligence faded back into a peaceful, munching quiet as they left. As Tommy awoke, the gentle blue light that was at his fingers began to fade out like a candle that has been extinguished. He massaged his eyes and grinned at his parents as he looked up at them. As he spoke, his voice was soft and drowsy. "Bessie got a boo-boo," he whispered quietly. "I made it better." Despite the fact that her whole body was shaking, Sarah moved forward and grabbed him in her arms. As she hurriedly examined him, she found that he was identical to Tommy in every way. He had the same warm cheeks, the same innocent blue eyes, and the same fragrance of grass and sunlight. The attention of Jack, on the other hand, was fixed on Bessie. His rancher's hands, which had previously delivered calves and fixed broken bones, hovered over the leg of the calf as he entered a knelt position. Where there had been a severe and possibly deadly gash likely caused by a piece of barbed wire that had been hidden there, was now simply a thin, pink line of new skin that was delicate and flawless. It was a miracle that took place in a matter of minutes. "According to Jack, Tommy," he remarked in a low and cautious tone. "How did you do that?" The young man just shrugged his shoulders. "All I did was pray for it to get better. Because Bessie was feeling down, I decided to assist her. There was an attempt made to conceal it. Together, they made a solemn vow that they would. There is, nevertheless, a method for the world to discover its wonders." A shaky, zoomed-in footage of the glowing meadow was acquired by a drone that was flown by a hobbyist from a property that was next to the one being filmed. That was sufficient. The title, which read "Angel Child Heals Livestock with Touch," quickly became very popular and spread over the internet. The property owned by Thompson was under attack. This gravel road was lined with news vans that were equipped with satellite dishes like metal cattle. Across the barrier, journalists yelled questions to one another. Then came the others. The zealous religious travelers, who said that Tommy was a prophet, the frantic parents, who were holding up images of their ill children, and the cynical doubters, who demanded a public demonstration. On the other hand, the most important arrivals were black SUVs that were not tagged, presented with credentials that signified nothing but indicated everything. Dr. Aris Tournay, a top scientist from a mysterious quasi-governmental body, presented his credentials. Having accompanied him was a lady by the name of Ms. Reed, who never allowed her grin to reach her eyes. Dr. Thorne reassured them, "We're here to understand, Mr. Thompson, not to take," as he flicked his eyes to Tommy with the insatiable curiosity of a scientist. This phenomenon, this bioresonance, it could change everything. A single, controlled observation was something that Jack and Sarah grudgingly consented to after being subjected to a great deal of pressure and being assured of their security and privacy. In the privacy of their own barn, with the blinds shut, Dr. Thorne caused Bessie to sustain a superficial cut that was not serious and was completely harmless. Tommy put his hand on the calf, but he was concerned since there were so many people observing him. "There is no occurrence." In an effort to concentrate, he wrinkled up his face. "Nothing has changed." "He's scared," Sarah remarked as she held him close to her head. "You're pressuring him at that moment." However, Bessie let out a low, quiet. The moment Tommy glanced at her, his anxiety seemed to dissipate for once. In a low voice, he muttered, "It's okay, Bessie." And then it started not. The dazzling blue light that had been there before. but rather a gentler, more interior radiance that seemed to emanate from inside Tommy's own skin, as well as the skin of the calf. This time, the cut was performed more slowly, but it was undeniable. When Dr. Thorne aimed his tools at both the youngster and the beast, they erupted into a frenzy. Fascinating. He exhaled deeply. It is not a one-sided process. It is a mutually beneficial transaction. Check out the encephalogram, would you? When the readouts were analyzed, it was discovered that Tommy and Bess's brainwaves had, for a brief period of time, synchronized into a single continuous pattern. They had merged their thoughts into a single entity. Ms. Reed, on the other hand, was the one who made the real breakthrough. In a tone that was icy and analytical, she remarked, "It is necessary to have a connection. The emotional connection is what brings about the change. The cow is not a recipient. Rather, it is a participant who is willing to take part." Everything was altered as a result of this. There was no superpower involved. Rather, there was a connection. Despite the fact that the plot erupted once again, the storyline changed. Suddenly, it was no longer about a healer boy. Rather, it was about communication between other species, a connection to a consciousness that mankind had never recognized before. The idea that the lovely, simple cow, a symbol of peaceful ignorance, was capable of a deep psychological connection was what astonished the world. Not the miracle itself, it was the insinuation that shook the world. One evening, as the media circus was beginning to wind down, Jack saw Tommy sitting by the fence. He was not with Bessie, but rather with the bull that was the oldest and most scarred in the herd. Titan was a beast that did not tolerate anybody. Titan was standing with his big, worn head in the palm of Tommy's hand. Both of them were completely motionless. A slow approach was made by Jack. "My son, are you feeling okay?" When Tommy glanced up, his eyes have a level of depth that is not typical for a child of his age. "Titan says the grass tastes sad because the sky is too quiet." "What does that mean, buddy?" Tommy said. He remembers when the big lights in the sky talked to his grandpa's grandpa as he turned his eyes toward the stars that were starting to speckle the twilight sky. He says they're waiting for us to remember how to listen. There was no connection between the evening air and the shiver that Jack felt creeping down his spine. It was then that he turned his attention back to his kid, after looking at the enormous bull, which had a methodical and slow blink. When a little child was able to cure a cow, the whole world was taken aback. They were completely unaware of the fact that the cows seemed to be holding memories of the stars, and that his little son was just starting to interpret everything. Well, that took a turn. If you had fun watching this story, give it a like and subscribe for more crazy, funny, and unbelievable stories every week.